Hello there, dear ones. Welcome to Gothic Atelier. Ugh, I'm so delighted you found your way here. Now, let me tell you about our wonderful artist Sarah and this enchanting wee corner of YouTube she's created. You see, Sarah has a most extraordinary gift. She takes these forgotten vintage porcelain dolls, these bonny treasures from days gone by, and breathes new life into them with her own Gothic twist. It's quite magical, really. She restores them, reimagines them, transforms them into something altogether darker and more mysterious. Each doll tells its own haunting tale, and Sarah's the one who helps them find their voice again. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and prepare to enter a world where Victorian elegance meets Gothic enchantment. Trust me, dearies, you're in for quite the treat.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. I decided to do a repaint on this. It was a church that looked like a Christmas village church that I found at a local thrift shop, and I wanted to kind of make it more to my aesthetic, make it more Halloween kind of themed, although it's probably going to go up in my house all the time. So I started out really quite simply, and you can see here I just took some trim-clad uh, paint, some spray paint, and took it outside where it was vented. You definitely don't want to do this anywhere that you don't have good ventilation because the stuff stinks. And just did a really, really, really diligent first coat over the entire church. Covered up all of the colored paint and everything, and just got it ready, kind of a clean palette for doing all of the weathering and antiquing and things that I was going to do over top afterwards. Just about done. So I did this, and then of course I had to come back and do a few little touch-ups, little spots that I'd missed, and then I waited for it to cure overnight. And by the next morning, it was perfect and ready to go, and I could start repainting it. Like I said, I'm just making sure I get everywhere. There's a lot of kind of, it's a candle unit. You can put a candle inside it. I didn't. The end of the video, I have kind of showing it done, and unfortunately, I didn't have any candles that were the right measurement, or I would have lit it up. But it does have a candle holder in it, so you can light it up and you get glowing through the windows and all that kind of stuff. I think I paid about $14 for it, which was a really good price. Definitely, I mean, you can't beat going to the thrift shop. So I did a bit of painting off camera. I wanted to really check and make sure that my acrylics were going to work, that I wasn't going to have to go over the primer with either Mr. Super Clear or something like that. And it ended up, it worked just fine. So I started off what was originally snow on the Christmas village. I decided to make moss. So I painted all of the, kind of looked like little puddles. I painted them all green. And I'm going to go over this with quite a few different shades. So I just started with a really bright green and just filled in all of the spots where I could see the snow. It happened to be, I was very fortunate that this particular church didn't have a lot of really heavily Christmassy elements to it other than the snow. So it was pretty easy to go in and reimagine. If you find one at a thrift shop and it's got more kind of Christmassy details, you might have to get a little bit creative with how to dress them up or add some paper dot or air dry clay, the paper stuff, to kind of try and make those details work for a more gothic look. But I mean, with all the kind of horror cartoons and stuff now that are out, you could definitely, if it's got, a teddy bear or a snowman or something like that, you could kind of horror theme up your creatures. But just going over everything, I did have to, because I was using acrylics, and I just used acrylics that I got at Michael's. They're just your everyday whatever American, and because they are translucent, I had to do more than one layer on a lot of things, but that was okay because I wanted to get a good depth of color. So that was totally fine. It's picking up some glare. It looks blue. It's actually like straight black right now. And I wasn't sure. I wanted to do something. I didn't want to take out a ton of the black and make it not black, but I did want to give the piece some additional contrast so that you could see the details, because it was a very, very detailed piece. There was a lot of cool little elements to it. So what I started doing is I took some gray paint and did kind of like a dry brush effect, as you can see. So I you could either do this with a paintbrush or with, I'm just using a cotton pad like for makeup. So I put it on everywhere, and then what I did after that was I actually took a little bit of water on my little pad, and I effectively washed a good portion of the paint off. So the gray really just, you get a little tiny bit of it and it's stuck into the details on the roof, the details on the brick, so that it would give it a little bit more dimension. And you can go nuts with this. I kind of did the whole thing. I did the roof, I did the bricks. There's bricks on the sides, and I really wanted to give it lots of depth. And I went over once, and then I went over a full second time afterwards, just in case I'd missed any spots, or if there were any spots that I felt like needed a bit more work. The only thing you have to remember when doing this kind of painting technique is that you can add more, you can't take more away. So if in doubt, take off more paint than you're thinking you might go with, and you can always go back and do another little second coat. Because, yeah, if you paint it too heavily, you can't really get that off after without going to some fairly extraneous ends. You can get it off. I mean, it's acrylic. Technically, you could take water and probably remove a good deal of it. Or you could go out and spray it again. But ideally, you wouldn't have to do either one of those things, and it would just be good to go the way it is. So, just going very lightly over the whole thing. You could also use a darker gray. I liked the lighter gray because it really did show off those details. And I did it at this point because I wanted to do it before I went in and did a lot of my final little details, so that, if anything got a little bit messed up with the dry brush technique, that I could go and kind of fix them up before I was all done. So it's just what I'm doing. And I did the whole piece off camera, so you didn't have to see me. Here's the little clock that was on the front. And I was trying to make it look very weathered. So I went over it with a couple of coats of white to get it nice and white. And then I actually went over it afterwards with gray and green to get a little bit of dimension on the hands, but not too much. What else am I doing here? Oh, right. Yes, I did gray on the little ledges. I did gray out I made it look like it's got kind of a cement walkway, if you can see it down at the bottom, and I left that block gray. I didn't take a lot of that off. But pretty much everywhere else on the entire unit, I did the dry painting technique because I wanted to make sure that those details really did jump out more than they would have with it just being matte black. And you could do that in a higher contrast color. I mean, you could do it with a red, you could do it with whatever. I wanted to do it with a gray, so it kind of looked like some of the German churches, the Black Forest style churches. I had some pictures I was using as inspiration for what some of their cathedrals and whatnot look like. So that was kind of what I was really going for with my color choices. So here's the last little bit, showing you which paints I'm using. So Craft Smart. I think I've got a mix of Craft Smart and Americana. Now, it's particularly timely today that I'm wearing my Toronto Blue Jays shirt because they are in the World Series right now, and we've been watching every game, and it's been great fun. But yeah, just doing all of those details. And make sure it dries kind of a little bit before you tip it sideways, just so you don't get it stuck. I like to just put it on top of a piece of paper towel. But you got to make sure it's kind of dried out in between so that it doesn't stick to the paper towel and then lift off the paint once you're done. And just making sure I'm getting in all those little details inside there's like a 3-dimensional door panel there. So I just want to make sure I'm getting it all over all of the kind of cornices and the trim and all of that stuff. Because that's really where you lose the detail if you leave it completely black. And you want to get nice bright detail out of that. Get it nice and kind of aged or antiqued looking. And this is by far the best way I've found to do it. It's just a bit of a dry brush. And, it doesn't have to be anything too fancy. And it does give you a really, really nice effect. Just got to make sure you get it everywhere. I'm still going. Oh, excuse me. Okay. What am I doing next? I think after the dry brushing, I move on to doing some texturing on the moss. So I took a couple of different colors of paint and was just dabbing it on the moss. You'll see in a second, just to kind of make it a little bit more three-dimensional. I went and did a bunch of the windows because there were stained glass windows all throughout it. So I did a bunch of the windows and just, fill in whatever detail. You can paint as many details as you want. I kept mine reasonably simplistic. I wanted to really focus on the black and not have too many other colors. So I chose to get mine fairly simple, but you could get really, really, really complicated depending on the style of the church that you can get your hands on. Definitely right now is the time to go and check the thrift stores because they're just starting to get all their Christmas stuff in. And it's a particularly good time of year to try and find these things.